Hello, you all. Welcome to Hang Out with Rockstar. I'm pretty excited to be once again, like every Friday, with all of you. Hope everyone is having a great Friday so far. I am Maria Hernandez, Developer Relation Lead at RAK, and like every Friday, here with Jose Marcelino, our Solution
Hi,
Architect.
everyone.
I know that you're pretty excited about today's session, right?
It's a full
Many,
session. Yeah, we
yeah,
we never had so many people. Let's see if this
yeah.
works.
Yeah, let's see how this is going. But yeah, if this is your first time joining to this session, a warm welcome for you. We are super happy to have new members joining to the community every Friday. And as Jose just mentioned, this session is quite different from the other one since we're going to have a roundtable discussion instead of an interview format event. So feel free to drop your questions on the comment section, and we will happy to discuss them all. And yeah, I think that's all for like for the introduction. Like we have four cool guests today. All of them has something in common, and is that they are all engineers, hackers, and open source contributors. And also, they have a common mission, which is building a connected world next to many other individuals. So, Travis, Paul, Mark, and Luis, welcome.
Hey, thanks for inviting
Hello.
me. How are you?
Wow.
Whoa, many people. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I'm pretty excited about the discussions that we're going to have, all related about the Helium network. And yeah, before I started, I want to encourage to all of those who are connected to stay in tune and ask questions. Since we're going to be giving away a Helium developer kit, which is based on
Wow.
Whiskblock. I
To
think
us?
Travis, yeah, no, to
Yay.
you know, for the guest. But you already have one whistle. All of you, I think, you have a whistle in their hands. But yeah, so yeah, let's get started. So some of you already have joined the sessions in the past, and maybe most of our community members already know you. But let's just start with an introduction of each of you. So can you share who you are, what do you do for work, and the latest project you are working on? We can start with Mark first, so we can
Okay.
in the order. Mhm.
All right. So I'm
Nice.
Marc Pous, based in Barcelona. I'm developer advocate at Balena. That means that I'm helping developers and communities to connect devices or fleets of devices to the internet using Balena. So at Balena, we help companies or developers to manage the software running on single board computers with the Balena's cloud and the Balena OS. So this is what I do. And so on the LoRaWAN ecosystem, so we are helping a lot of people who are owners of fleets of gateways, actually, to manage the software running on those gateways. And yeah, with Helium, it's a no-brainer. So it's super simple to create a Helium hotspot. And actually, I get engaged with this community on the Alpha program. But yeah, we can talk about that later. I give the word to someone else.
Nice.
Thank you, Mark.
Luis.
Hello, my name is Louis Steary. I work at Helium along with Travis. I'm actually on the same team as Travis, and what I focus on generally is helping people kind of get their hands dirty with a lot of our open source tools. Everything from devices to miners to routers, and I think we'll talk about that later today, and how to run network servers, stuff like that. So we're kind of technical support for people who want to get their hands dirty with the Helium ecosystem, basically. Yeah, was that it for the intro, or do we bring up something else?
No, that is fine.
Okay.
Thanks, Luis. Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul, and I agree. This guy is really making a really good user support. So that's cool. Thank you, Luis. So I'm Paul. I'm basically doing different things like making some IoT devices since 5-6 years on a really large number of technologies. I'm also a blog owner on this91.com. So sharing my knowledge on all the IoT solution protocols, all that stuff around. So yeah, feel free to have a look and see that. So
Nice.
that's it.
Thanks.
I think you're being a little modest there. It's you run an absolutely amazing blog, and I think everyone in the IoT field follows it and has probably read most everything on it. And sometimes I know that Lewis is hit up, for translation. So yeah,
Awesome.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So Travis, how about you?
Travis.
My name is Travis. I work over at Helium. I'm on like Lewis said, we're on a team that works both internally with developers and with the community for developers and to bring new people, new companies onto the Helium network. And so we end up wearing a lot of hats over there. And Lewis was quite modest himself. He writes utilities. He writes, just a large number of things that help us, it helps me figure out what's going on over here. So we've got a good team over at Helium, and I think that what we've been able to accomplish in the past, just since rollout has been pretty amazing compared to some of my experience in the past of being involved with other LoRaWAN networks, and just the rate at which we were able to roll this out.
Actually, like we can see that thing based on the exponential growth you had in the development of the network in the United States. That is something that we're going to talk in a bit, but yeah, we can definitely see that. So yeah, thanks for the intro, and now it's time to start with the roundtable discussion. So as an initial question, this is not directly related to Helium, but it's mostly connected to it. So how can IoT move on the blockchain and cryptocurrency space? Is your thought about that question? Well, anyone who wants to start can pick the question.
No. It's confusing question, maybe.
I can try something. Try something if you want. What I see currently in the IoT market is because the IoT market is growing, but not growing fast enough, maybe. Most of the telecom operators, for example, are in a kind of troubled situation. And basically, they are changing the rules. And when you are a device maker or service provider, you are really at risk because the way the subscription works, for example, is something that you cannot trust for long term. So your business model is a bit complicated, and it's not also equal. If you are a small player, you cannot have the same access to the subscription in terms of price or volume than a big player and so on. And where the blockchain is really interesting is that the rules are hard-coded in the blockchain. So when designing devices, you are confident about the business model. And the business model is the same for a small player and for a big player. And that's really interesting and really safe in this point of view. So for this point, it's really interesting. There is also for the trust of the data coming out of the different devices. The blockchain is also something that is really interesting for this. So there is many applications in the IoT domain where blockchain really makes sense in my point of view. That's what is really interesting there.
Definitely. Nice. Anyone?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I think that when we start talking about blockchains and IoT, it's not necessarily just Helium here. I think there's a lot of use cases for blockchains where you can have completely trustless environments, like in an oil field, for example, where you have 50 companies that are all trying to work with each other, but they all hate each other, and but they do have a common goal in mind, and so implementations of things like smart contracts can make a lot of sense, where you can have trustless environments that everyone buys into. I think we're going to see that being a huge factor in IoT going forward.
Well, maybe I jump in. I mean, there is also the site acquisition problem, right? Because that's been a problem with growing networks. Because for a cellular operator, it's just very expensive to buy sites and have access to them. So anything that helps with that, which is like what Helium has done, it really changes the game, I think. So it's just finding that model out how to reward people. It's very difficult. I mean, other operators have tried direct paying people money or paying their cable subscription. I've heard of a lot of models, but Helium is great because it's tied to a cryptocurrency. It grows and hopefully grows up to the moon, and there's always that reward there for people to join, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's this innovation on business models, right? One of the things that for me it's more interesting as well on IoT, it's the business models that are generated, on the top of the technology. And I think that Helium is introducing this new business model thanks to the blockchain technology and the cryptocurrencies and so on. But yeah, this could be a game changer. I don't know. Hopefully it will succeed, but yeah, let's see if it will become a game changer. And I think a lot of telcos will change their business model because of what you are doing, guys.
Yeah,
I mean,
think everyone.
Sorry. Go ahead, Luis.
I think everyone kind of touched on it, but I think that that's what it's the big reason why I joined Helium was I think they did a good job of finding this problem where blockchain fits really well, and I think more broadly it's kind of a especially as we're getting further along in the project, we're seeing it's a broad like roaming solution to all of telco infrastructure. We're focusing on IoT right now, and it fits really well in IoT, especially in the US where rollout for LoRaWAN has been difficult, and any of these kind of low power networks has been difficult because of the topology being just much more spread than Europe. But it's what we're seeing is the model works, and it's really cool because I see it having a lot of utility in all kind of telco stuff where like having a bunch of fractured private networks isn't valuable for anyone, whether it be users or operators. Really, it helps operators in some instances extract value from the market, but that's not ultimately that doesn't really work long term, and you end up getting kickback from that or a pushback from that. So anyway, that's kind of what I see as how IoT and blockchain come together.
Definitely. Thanks for sharing your thought about that. What? Paul?
Oh, sorry.
You mentioned something? Sorry?
I think I can one thing is that I made a competition some months ago with the number of concentrator chip that Semtech has sold. And my competition, I don't remember exactly, but it was something like we can cover twice the surface of Earth with people with the LoRaWAN network with this number of modules, basically. So maybe I'm wrong on the computation, but I mean that the coverage we could have in LoRaWAN with the current deployed gateway is really, really large, but the reality of the coverage is really small. And in my point of view, it's really related that we have some place where we have a 100 gateway to cover a really small zone, and some place where there's nothing. And what is interesting with blockchain and by making an easier relationship between a network provider and device maker or service provider is that it allows to reshare the infrastructure and not to duplicate the coverage where it's not needed by making easy transaction between all the operators. So, I mean, it's in terms of in an ecological point of view or in a coverage point of view, it's something that is really positive in that way.
Yeah. That's something you can address like with reward scaling and things like that have been introduced after the initial deployment. So that's kind of interesting how Helium is kind of evolving with all the hips and everything else to catch up with the changing reality of deployment.
Yeah. And which the community is. Go ahead, man.
Well, I was gonna. So that's what I think is really interesting is the blockchain can help adjust that coverage as we start seeing those gaps, and we can kind of like help. It's just a great way of having a bunch of individual parties that and coordinating them with these incentives to actually provide a good network. Because I think what we see more and more today is the less top down an organization is, the better it performs and the more efficient it is, and the more the right stakeholders get what is due. So by coordinating this all with blockchain rules, you keep it very flat. You keep everybody focused on what they're best at, and you basically coordinate it without being heavy-handed and top-down, which I think is really elegant, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fully agree. But I mean, what I see is really the way people are organizing to place the hotspot, to put antenna outdoor and so on is really good and really interesting. And it's everything is inside the blockchain. I mean, the rule of the blockchain that makes people improving the network. So that's really interesting. I mean, the rule of having a hotspot at a minimum of 300 meter push people to have a network which is growing from a center and having a more larger and larger perimeter, which is really interesting in terms of coverage, because you know that when you are in a coverage zone, you are going to be able to move from that zone also and deploy your solution. So that's, I mean, in my point of view, it's really clever. So the question will be, in my point of view, the rule will have to really change, or adding rule, maybe not changing the rule, but adding some new to cover the people concentrated areas. I mean, when we are in countryside, the current rule will prevent for deploying the network. So at a certain point, I mean, it's interesting to see that we have multiple steps, basically growing in the cities and growing in the countryside and so on. But the rule will have to adapt to that, in my point of view.
I agree with you there. I think there's been a lot of discussion about lone wolves and about how they should be compensated, in a heavier manner for, bringing the network out to the edge. I think that's something that's been discussed, quite a bit in the community. I think but I mean, that's a huge factor, because you have LoRaWAN, which is an incredible solution for farm, ag, ranch, use cases. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these are going to be lone wolves, where you may not have a direct backhaul, but you may have Starlink, you may have, you may have a cellular backhaul. And that's a direction that we've been moving, very heavily about, being able to, I guess, change the mechanism through which you can backhaul in remote situations. Now, as far as the 300-meter thing's concerned, a lot of that has to do with, people want to game the network. I mean, this is effectively, I can't, we can't talk about a lot of things here, but it's a neat little box, these Helium hotspots are, even if you're not interested in providing network coverage. But what Helium has worked so hard at doing here is making it so that you benefit when you provide that coverage. And if you're trying to cheat the system, then it's going to be short term at best. So
actually,
I think that's
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think that's really brought a lot of the crypto and blockchain people together with the antenna people and the
that was the question that I wanted to ask. Like that, all of these has make the community to join from different aspects. Like we have the IoT community people, we have the blockchain community people, and the crypto. And like from your perspective, like how you see like the conjunction of all of this community in just one place? Like, what do you think about it?
Exciting. I've been fascinated with our project, how many non-blockchain people are coming in, and I think that's actually a really good sign that it's solving a problem. Because if it was just a bunch of crypto enthusiasts, not to say that those people aren't important, but if our project was only doing that, then I'd start asking myself some questions of whether we're solving a problem. But because we have all these people, like Paul, for example, with the Sigfox background, and he knows these low power networks, and he's looking at Helium, and he's very interested. I think that's really saying that we're on kind of the right topic. So I think the fact that we have this melting pot of a community is super exciting, because that means you also get all those perspectives and all those people coming together to solve problems. And to touch on actually what we were just talking about, like as far as like how like the rewards, like I think Paul pointed out, like how do you reward people for deploying in areas that are valuable? Like if you're in the middle of nowhere, maybe you shouldn't be incentivized too much to do there. And I think it poses a really interesting, thinking about that problem highlights the challenges of using the blockchain to incentivize and promote the behavior that you want. That problem is really hard to solve because we could, for example, create an economic map of where's a valuable place versus not. But then we're afraid of doing that because then creating that map is a political thing where humans get involved and decide that place, or these numbers decide how these numbers are driven. A lot of the blockchain design tries to take the human out of it so that there's no politics and so that there's no abuse from some kind of central decision-making power. So it's really interesting to work through these problems and understand the limitations of blockchain design generally, of how you try to keep the human out of the loop, but also look at the real world problems of 20 gateways in Antarctica, not as useful as 20 gateways in New York. So even if they're deployed the same way, should they be earning the same? Probably not. But then how do you solve that problem? So I think, but what's really cool is with the community, there's tons of great ideas all the time. And I'd say the biggest Helium improvement proposals, HIPs, that have come out in the last couple months have come from community members who came up with ideas that everyone looked at and was like, this is actually not a very complicated thing to implement, would really align the incentives, and let's go forth and do that. So I think that's really what excites me about the community as well, is it just all these ideas coming together.
And I think this community, it's like a win-win situation, like everyone is trying to optimize or maximize the rewards. So maybe you are a neighbor of a crypto person or a blockchain person, and you are a LoRa expert. So everyone is like learning from each other. It's like a peer-to-peer network where it's not only about transmitting data or giving this proof of coverage, but trying to make this win-win situation when everyone is learning from each other. And I also like this idea of building this network with very different type of people, and try to succeed with that. I think that's awesome.
And also, like, important to highlight here is
there is
like,
a really
go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
sorry, Maria, we have a lag. Go on,
lag.
Go on.
Is he on
Okay.
Helium?
Yeah, are you on Helium?
Paul has a lag.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I totally agree with you, Marc. It's really win-win. What I see in the community, in the Helium community, is that we have the crypto community, crypto guys, who are really basically oriented to application of the IoT, and more the tech guys like me who are more interesting about radio communication and all that stuff, even if I'm also doing some application. But what is interesting is that we have a mix of, I would say, marketing business guys in some way, and techies in the other way. And the community really works together. And we have a lot of talk about possible application. And what is funny when I discuss with this guy is that they are proposing, they have problem to solve that we can solve with Sigfox or LoRaWAN since 5 years. But this problem, they didn't know it was possible to address them. But as they are involved in Helium, they want to address them with Helium. And they have the ability to talk in their company to decision people, or eventually they are the guy making decision in the company. And so it can accelerate the deployment of IoT solution, just because by being part of Helium, they are learning about IoT, what we can do, and so on. And they can find in the Helium community, they can find the people with the skill to help them to make it a reality. So we have a combination which is unique compared to what I've seen previously. And it's not a business relation, it's more a friendship relation. And that's really interesting. I don't know, it's really a 6 months discussion and more than the last 3 months discussion. So how it's going to be evolved, it's really interesting, but there is in my point of view, a lot of interesting thing to make a a good combination of all that skill and generate some data running over the network, which is the most important thing at the end.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
cool.
That is something super important, and I think like this is like also like the time to encourage all of those who are in the IoT community to start creating like applications. Like we have a bunch of hotspots deployed around the world, but it's also like our time to start creating solutions that solve real world problems based on the network, which is a pretty important thing here as well.
Well
And
said. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and Jose, do you want to maybe to share
Yeah,
something?
I was
Perfect.
just looking. There's a new app now called app Helium Vision, and I was just looking at the hotspots in the US, and it's just incredible. I mean, the scale of it. This is kind of cellular level already, and it's only been a few months.
Yeah.
So
What's
there is
really
coverage. Yeah, sorry.
it's wild that we're getting highway coverage. I mean, honestly, that's something that a lot of cities, even greater metroplexes, were kind of islands, and then we're starting to see planes fly over the maps, right, and and then see the level of highway coverage that we're getting.
Yeah, it's working everywhere, and there is a network there out there and needs applications, of course. Just let's go make them.
I'm
Yeah.
fairly new to LoRaWAN. Like I've only learned about it since Helium, but what I think is interesting, or what has what's the word here? What has challenged me a little bit about LoRaWAN products, which I'm wondering whether our network solves a little bit, but I find that they're challenging because what I'm seeing is they ship you this thing where you have to type in the API UI and Dev UI, and I'm more from like a consumer IoT background. So, and I think the problem is like, because of the fragmented networks before, you kind of needed to give your end user that information. But because our network is a lot, the wireless infrastructure itself is very public, and meanwhile we kind of let the private network server aspect come into play. But I wonder whether the fact that now the RF side of it, or the is more continuous, and basically within our Helium network, you're kind of roaming all the time type of thing. But because we seem to have maybe improved on that problem a little bit, I wonder whether we can see LoRaWAN products that are just, and I think they could be better than consumer products, because now if you just assume it's going to be on the Helium network and there's going to be coverage there, you can unbox the thing. You don't have to type in an API UI, Dev UI. You just switch it on and it joins. And so I think LoRaWAN products could be better than the experience with like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi based products. Potentially, I think, I think the struggle with LoRaWAN products until now has been the lack of that coverage zone, which means you then have to solve that problem at the end user level. So, I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on that, but as someone coming from like general consumer IoT and learning more about LoRaWAN, that's kind of been my notes I've been taking as I've been seeing all these products, that I'm like, I couldn't see a lot of people using these products because they're annoying to use. But anyway, end rant.
I've got an idea about that, and it's not really end user so much as it is, I guess, developer. But Jose, Maria, you know about this. With the BLE onboarding. Mobile app for it.
I knew this was coming.
Me too.
So it effectively puts fake keys onto the firmware that you flash a device with. Then you connect to it over BLE and put your own keys on there. You set it whether you're OTA, which Helium only supports OTA at this point. But I mean, you put your data rate, you put all of your factors, into this app. Reflash OTA to the device, and you pick up on the network. And so from a developer side, that's awesome, man. That's incredibly cool. Another thing though about some of the pain points is you have all sorts of different devices. They don't all follow this. They don't use the same libraries. They don't use the same schemes. For onboarding, for joining, for timing, and so we see a lot of issues there. You know, and I think that is a problem. I think some companies are doing a lot of good there, like making more modular devices. I think Seed with their sense caps is doing something cool where you can put whatever sensor you want and, you know, onto a capsule that contains the radio, the battery, the antenna, everything else, and you just add what sensor you want onto it, and it's an IP rated outdoor enclosure that you can use like out in the field. I think that's cool. I think that's a big advancement in just kind of the way of thinking. But I don't know.
I think like more that Luis like is related with the IoT end user like experience, not as a developer, more in the like end products side, or
Sure.
In my
Yeah.
point of view,
Mhm.
what's Helium is creating new on this area is that basically I don't think people will have to enter Dev UI or Apple UI, because thanks to the price of the connectivity, basically you can include in your product the price of the connectivity.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I don't really trust that there is an interesting business on doing on being just a device maker and selling a bunch of product. It's better to for B2C, basically, it's better to work as a solution provider. So when you buy a tracker, people will never be interested at having something that you have to code your API to get your
Mhm.
location on your Google Doc, or I don't know. So what they want to have an app where you can display the information. And so it's a solution, basically. So as a solution provider, I can send a tracker, for example, with the API delivery already configured, because with Helium, I can provide 10 years of connectivity included inside the price of the product, because it's really not expensive. It's about 15 times less than the classical operator. And so that way I can really simplify the onboarding process, because there's no onboarding process. You get the device, it works, it's connected to your application. Better than Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
where you need to set up something. It has nothing to do. That's in my point of view, that's the best way to solve that.
Yeah.
But not everyone likes kind of that model, because they will want to run their own application. For example, it's so they don't want to be tied. They want a device. They want like, oh, I want a tracker that works with my ERP system, something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I fully agree.
so that-
That's why my point of view when I
Mm.
say service provider, in my
Mhm.
point of view, it's API. It's you have the API. You have also the application, because you have people that want to have something really out of the box being able to be used. But the solution provider also propose an API, so you can have any transparent integration with an ERP. But basically, it is what we do with Fox Tracker, and I think it's the right position for such business.
Or even like, you know, you have solution providers that sell to solution providers, or you see a lot of white labeling. And
you are doing that.
you know, with APIs or whatnot. And so you design some you know, some piping that works well, some UI and UX that works well, and then you sell to developers. And I mean, we've seen that throughout the years, especially in the Windows community, you know, like tool developers. And I don't know. I think being open source, it's a very easy community to get into a third-party development position, you know, within the Helium community.
Yeah, definitely. That is one that I wanted to highlight right here, and is that just a few weeks ago, the Helium console was announced as open source, with the aim of increasing the decentralization and deceleration of the usage of the network. So I don't know, maybe some of you have plans to adopt any private network.
Yes.
Now that you are talking about solutions.
Yeah, I think
everyone's just smiling right now.
Yeah.
What, you don't have one, Maria, yet? Oh, we need one.
Yeah, you should.
Need one.
You
should get one.
You are part of the. If you are part of the Sigfox ambassador, Maya, you need to have a UI.
I need to join the
That's a good one.
Yeah, but basically, I can talk a bit about this because I bought an OUI at early this week, and I spent some time this week deploying console and router, and I'm still working. I just crashed OpenStack at work by doing a wrong command today. So I'm not in prod, but no, everything is fixed now. It was a long day for me. Yeah, I really think that it's something interesting. I really love this model of multi-operator. Basically, what I want to do with my company is to provide a European Helium operator for two reasons. The first one is if you want to develop a European solution and your data are passing through the Helium company in North America, basically the North American laws will apply, which is not something really good for European companies. So being in Europe is good for them. And the other reason, which is interesting also, is that when your device is joining or expecting a downlink, it's the answer comes from the network server, and even if I'm sure that the Helium team is doing a good job of having a really quick response on downlink and so on, there is about 600 milliseconds just for the round trip. And so at certain time when you have downlink windows that are 1 second or 2 seconds after the transmission, it can be short and it can be a risk for your communication. So this is the two reasons why I think it's really interesting to have servers in Europe. And thanks to the blockchain system, it's really easy. And what also it is really interesting with that is I had the talk with a lot of industrial company is that want to keep their data on their own, even if it makes no sense. As I mean, their data will be received by all the gateway around, and only the right one will be able to decrypt it. But they want to keep their data on their own. And so that's really interesting that you can propose to a company, an industrial company, to deploy dynamically a new operator, getting its own UI and so on. And it means that all the device data will only goes to their server and not on the other server, and will be encrypted there. So it addresses basically the question of private LoRaWAN solution, but getting the benefit of a global network, as the routing is made by any hotspot. So even if you are on a public hotspot, your data is directly routed to your network server. So this is a really powerful. It means like it's for a company. It's like if you have your private network, but your private network is already having 20,000 hotspots today and is worldwide. So that's really powerful. So I trust this.
I don't know if my understanding is we're basically the only LoRaWAN network that does this. So I think it's a really exciting feature that it's like Paul's saying, it's public infrastructure, but then private network servers. And I don't think you have an opportunity to do that with any other LoRaWAN network, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the most exciting design pieces in the way that we've kind of taken LoRaWAN, we've pushed the spec a little bit and made this really interesting kind of innovation on top of the base spec. I think it's.
Mm-hmm. The entry cost is very low. I mean, for a private, compared to, I mean, TTN does have like the packet broker, which is kind of similar. So it's the roaming agreement, but you need signed agreements, you need some payments. So it's not something you can deploy in a few minutes like you can do with the router.
Right. And that's where like blockchain is really cool for this, because no one can stop you from coming in and becoming an operator on our network, and that's where like it really feels like we're hitting the right business problem with this blockchain. It's not just for the sake of blockchain. It's really about like these are the biggest frustrations in telecoms today, is the barriers to entry are, you have all these politics, these handshakes, these business deals. By completely removing those barriers, you make sure that people are getting the value they bring to the network, rather than making people gatekeepers extracting from the rest.
So I got a question for the group here about LoRaWAN roaming. I know TTN has some thoughts here, and the LoRa Alliance has some thoughts on how this can work, but I just wanted to know what this group thought about how roaming is going to work moving forward.
No. No one wants to talk.
No,
Yeah,
for
Paul
me,
has a lot of experience.
roaming on LoRa One is a joke. So, I mean, when the first public operator was Obgenius in France, and the LoRa One version was 1.0 when they have deployed 1.0.1, something like this, where there's no possible roaming on it. And when they deploy the commercial offer, they say, well, we have a global network, we have a roaming agreement with a USA company. At this time, there were no module able to communicate between USA and Europe. There was no network really in North America, and they were claiming for roaming capabilities. And since that time, we always hear about roaming, new specification addressing roaming, and so on. But basically, in this world, no one wants to roam with a new one. So I really appreciate what did. I think the best thing that has been did in that area is what TTN has done with the packet broker, and they have put in place a totally different approach than the LoRa One specification for this. And so that's why for me it's a joke. It's because at the end they are always talking about roaming, but nothing is really correctly working well. And that's why, in my point of view, and that's my opinion since many years, an IoT network just makes sense if it's a global, worldwide network. So TTN makes sense because it's global. Sigfox makes sense because it's global. Helium makes sense because it's global. But the agreement between national operators that are passing time to fighting against others and so on, it's just a mess for people deploying a solution. So at the end, it makes sense. So an interesting global network, in my point of view.
So, and since Sigfox, they've made some large pivots, in the past years, where initially they were rolling out, all of the deployments, but now you can get, I guess, a gateway device for Sigfox, and
in fact, you can get a gateway, but this gateway is going to extend the public network. It just you buy your own gateway, but it's connected to the public network. 2 years ago, they announced the ability to have a private network. In my point of view, it's really a shame. It's a marketing response. I don't think there is really an offer, a public offer for this. It's a marketing response because industrial companies say, like I said previously, industrial companies say, I don't want to have my data mixed over the air with other people's data. So that's really a problem. It's really not making sense. But they're like this. So Sigfox say, we have a solution for you. We can do a private network. But basically, what is a private network? It's a gateway connected to the public network that will filter the IDs to just report yours. So it captures, even the gateway is capture all the devices, but when the devices come from this gateway to the network server, the network server rejects the IDs that are not part of this private network. It's just a nonsense in terms of technology, radio, and so on. It's just marketing bullshit, basically.
And on radio point of view, it's really hard to avoid that. So to make a private gateway, right?
Well, what do they say? The cloud is just someone else's computer. So, it comes down to having your keys and your payloads that are private to you, right? And I guess it depends how much you care about metadata and network transit information on something, which you really, in most industries, I don't think would. So.
And there's really not much you can do about your radio packets going over the air and someone catching them. Like it is what it is, my friend.
Exactly. Yep. So on radio point of view, it's really hard. But I think, Paul, so getting back into the roadmap, into the roaming question, I think Sigfox did a good job, right, on the roaming and trying to create this global network and facilitating to solution developers that I think, it's the next probably stage on Helium. Maybe I would like to hear more about that, how to facilitate them, make like professional solutions, for companies and deploy that amount.
Oh, sure. And I think that we pursue that very, very strongly right now over at Helium. We work with a lot of companies that, from idea stage, I've got an idea, I want to get this up to the point that, okay, we need thousands of units. How do we get this design out and, actually into a commercial product? So I think that's something that Helium is very serious about. And we work, with these companies on a daily basis.
Cool. And you see that most of these companies, usually they also provide coverage. So they pay data credits with tokens or not really, or not necessary.
I'd say in general, a lot of these companies have rolled out their own coverage to supplement what they're seeing in general. Especially because the network's about 1.5 years old, basically. Yeah. It's growing. I think we're over 22,000 gateways now, so it's growing fast. But a lot of people that were trying to build an application a year ago, I think we only had 5,000 gateways a year ago, or I don't know what it was. But anyway, so it was less, like 5,000 globally isn't really dense enough yet. So a lot of people would be like, okay, I'm going to deploy a couple gateways, where I see the pockets for my use case. But it's nice that when my, this area I don't need to worry about because someone's got that covered. And more, like my hope is that more and more, and I think we're really getting to the cusp of it right now, where people deploy products and don't even have to think about the coverage anymore. And that way, it just really removes one huge barrier to shipping your product. Because if you're managing infrastructure and creating end devices and making that user experience around the device, it's a lot on your plate. But if you know there's going to be coverage there, it's you're shipping a lot faster, and you're just focusing on a device, which is really what most people want to focus on. In some cases, you don't even need to do a custom device. You can find a really good off-the-shelf device and focus, kind of what Paul was saying earlier, focus on more of like the service product, or the level where it's like they want the integration, they want it to be helping them make a business decision, doing the math on the fly of like where their fleet's going or whatever. They don't care about buying a piece of hardware, programming the API UI, connecting the data to their server. Anyway, so yeah, the more focused that these kind of like the people close to the customers programming the domain logic, the less they have to do to ship that product, the better in my mind.
And not just the end nodes. I mean, because we have, a number of third-party manufacturers that are now, supplying gateways, hotspots, to the world, that, you can just pick that up off the shelf as well. And so I think we're going to see ease of integration really increase there. Like this year.
I mean, that's an important point to touch professional application. It's the ability to get the hardware. I mean, currently we know that it's the beginning. We have 4-5 months sometimes to get a hotspot. So if I'm a service provider and I want to deploy in a private space, like for one of my customer, I don't know, a smart city or thing like this, and I want to deploy Helium, I have to be sure that I will be able to get the hardware at this time. Maybe I think that light gateway will be more interesting for this, because you don't want to deploy the full miner and so on, and maybe the availability of the hardware will be better. But I think this kind of light hardware is really a key component for professional application, because I need to be sure that I will be able to deploy. If I have a new customer, I will be able to deploy the network with that technology.
Well, question, is it whether you can deploy the technology, or is it whether you can earn cryptocurrency as a supplement for deploying the technology?
In my point of view, imagine I'm doing an application for farming, for example, and it's interesting to me to use Helium because the price is low and can benefit of coverage from other project or public, the crowdsource coverage. But sometimes, as I'm doing farming, there is a big change as there's nothing, and so I will deploy the network with my solution, and that's interesting because if someone else come and add something in that environment, I will also get a benefit of having deployed this gateway. So it makes sense. But if I want to do that, I need to be sure that when I will need 30 gateways to cover a new city or a new farm, I will be able to get the hardware in a week. Because I can't say to my customer, wait 1 or 2 months because hardware is not available. You know what I mean? But
I think that's the biggest thing that's been stunting Helium for the last 6 months is the hardware availability, and I know people who ordered, tried to get a hotspot back in November, and they still don't have it. So, but yeah, I'm very excited by, I think everybody here probably knows about HIP 19, which was, allowing a lot more vendors come on. So now, there's a lot more options on hardware, and I think that's ramping up. I think the supply chains post-COVID, or as COVID kind of, at this stage in COVID, let's say it's not really over yet, but the supply chains are stabilizing, and things are, I think, really going to ramp up over the next year, because the fact that we have 22,000 gateways with those supply chain issues, and with the lack of diversity of vendors that we had initially, now we have, I think, 5 approved vendors, and I really think that the rest of the year the coverage is. I have high expectations of where it'll be. Like I don't want to throw any numbers out willy-nilly, but I really think that the gateway availability problem will be something of the past in about 3 months, I hope.
And that 22,000 is deployed gateways, by the way. So
you're right. There's a bunch in the supply chain. I'd say I don't know the numbers, but my guess is we're talking 5,000 to 20,000 in the pipeline for the next month or something at least. But I could be. Those are not like confidential numbers, because I just made them up. Those are just ones I'm guessing based on.
Yeah. What I mean is that the gateway with the miner and so on is really cool, and there is a good interest of having it for getting the miners making money and so on. So that's really cool. But I mean, in a service provider point of view, I'm not really especially interested in making HNT by doing proof of coverage and so on. I'm interested about making HNT by transferring data from other service providers that will use my infrastructure. But I'm prefer to have a low power hardware, more reliable hardware, lower cost hardware, and so on. So that's why I really think the light gateway are going to be something really interesting for this kind of application, where we are not focusing on making HNT, but really focusing on getting a new tool with some really nice advantages to deploy a solution we provide.
But today you have a do-it-yourself, right? You can buy a LoRa concentrator with a Pi, and it's that. Or, well, it's not cheaper. It's not low cost or low power. But
no, it's beyond that. You can be a packet forwarder, right?
And I don't know if we defined what a light gateway is or a light hotspot, so I just want to maybe clarify that point. But basically, there's some architectural changes happening in the Helium system that are making the requirements, the computational and bandwidth requirements of a gateway go down like at a staggering level. Like right now, a Raspberry Pi 4 is kind of like the minimum that you need to be able to like run the blockchain node, basically this full blockchain node that does all the like syncs the blockchain, does a bunch of crypto. And there's a lot of re-architecture happening with there's something called validators that it's kind of a deep topic. I don't want to go too far, but what we're doing is removing a lot of the responsibility from the gateways to allow them to be a lot cheaper, essentially, because you don't need the same amount of CPU, you don't need the same amount of RAM, you don't need the same amount of bandwidth. So I think we're going to see hotspot prices. I think they probably average $300 to $400 right now. Again, like 6 to 9 months from now, when all that kind of stuff is out and re-architected and in the wild, I think we're starting to see easily less than 200, and I think we'd all like to see a $100 gateway this year. So
we've seen $100 gateways, though, is the thing. We've seen $100 8-channel gateways,
but they can't mine. With our current setup, where I think what's going to be really exciting, because it's nice to provide coverage for the sake of providing coverage, and you can do that, but it's even better if you're providing coverage on a $100 gateway and it's able to earn just like the gateways today that cost $400. And with the roadmap that we have over the next couple months, that's going to become a reality. And I'd say end of year, you could be pretty certain that kind of thing will be in production, and you won't need these really heavy things. And the gateway cost is just going to go down drastically. And I think that's going to be fantastic for coverage.
Yeah. Except on eBay. They're still going to be sky high on eBay. But.
Well, once that gets flushed out and going, I think that aftermarket won't be so bad.
Well, one thing that I think is fantastic, though, about this and about HNT is I think a lot of use cases in the third world. For example, we've got Open, a group that we work with, and I think that there's an opportunity there where you can really supplement, if not, kind of fund a lot of good things that you're working on by the blockchain, by earning HNT, and I think that's important. I think there's a lot of use cases there that can benefit.
And that's raised the question. I mean, there is something which is, strange a bit, is that in some country, that the cryptocurrency are totally forbidden. So it basically prevents, in my point of view, the network to be deployed there due to the fact that you are mining HNT. So sometimes having a solution able to creating the coverage without generating HNT, but basically you can do it with a DIY. But could be also something interesting, or find another way to, because otherwise we have a global network, but some countries are outside this network because of the regulation locally. So I don't know if you think about how to address this question to have a global coverage.
I think the people in that country should tell their government to get their act together and to stop stifling their economy from adopting things.
I mean, there's I don't know, there's back channels. There's different ways that you can go within ISM, or using a technology in a country. I think that any technology that has secure crypto and that provides secure communication is going to be extremely valuable, especially when we're talking about effectively throwaway devices, where you're not tied to a cell plan or a credit card that I pay for a cell phone with, where I can have a device that can, securely communicate over a network, and it's I can effectively just throw it away. I think that's an incredibly powerful use case that we're going to see a lot more of in IoT. Overall, on very low bandwidth stuff moving forward.
Definitely. Actually, we're just about run out of time, but I don't want to extend too much this session. I know that we have a lot of things to discuss about Helium. I have a specific question for Luis, so I will jump on this one. That what are the challenges that Helium is currently facing at this moment?
Well, like I mentioned a second ago, I think it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Instead of the logistic gateway part,
right?
Yeah.
And to me, I don't think everybody's feeling that that's over yet. But to me, that's we've put in place the implements to make that be over. So I think that's not really our biggest concern at the moment.
Okay.
I'd say now that we feel like the coverage is not bottlenecked from growing, I think it's a lot more on focusing on enabling usage. I think that's a big reason why open sourcing the console stack was important, because it helps people like Paul to now he can manage a network server and help people get devices on the network, and he's able to kind of provide a better experience for them than when it's just Helium, because that's a lot of these blockchain things are all about bringing more people in so that they can compete against each other and provide the best service. And Paul's going to be much better at helping French companies use the Helium network than Helium will ever be. So I think, better adoption. We really want to get usage going now that we feel like coverage can kind of grow without. There's still limits, but it's been quite limiting, and I don't think it's going to be as limited anymore as supply chain and costs go down. So I think it's really focusing on usage at this point, because I think we're hitting that critical point of do you have enough coverage so people can ship real products on this network? Can they ship a product without giving the user the API UI and Dev UI and just expect there to be network? And I think we're getting there. So I think really nice products and use cases are more and more possible. More people don't have to think about deploying coverage while making their product, like we mentioned a second ago. So I think that's kind of, to me, the biggest challenge. I don't know. You guys might have other ideas of things that concern you. I'd be interested to talk about any other thoughts.
I do have a quick question for you, Paul. You mentioned earlier, as far as running this in France because of laws, were you talking about FCC or radio regulation laws, or were you talking about?
No. I'm more talking about the Cloud Act or this kind of laws that makes that if your business is dependent on a North American company, and sometimes North American laws applies to you. So basically, I just have an example. In Europe, we are authorized to have some business with Iran, for example. But in North America, you did not, or you're not. I don't know what is the current situation. And if I'm a European company passing through a North American service, so Helium is a North American service, and I'm doing business with the Iranian, I'm right to do that in Europe, but the North American government can ask you to cut my flows, my data flows, because I'm not respecting the North. So that's a big problem for European companies. This kind of things. There is some others where my data, as they are passing through you, the North American state can request you to give them my data. So for all those reasons, basically, some companies prefer to have the data staying in Europe. And sometimes also we can have personal data or else data. And if my data pass through a North American server, it's a data exportation. It's a personal data exportation. And regarding the GDPR and so on, it's a bit complex. So
I got you.
In some certain use case, makes sense to be in Europe and stay in Europe.
That's why we need strong crypto, though. But yeah.
Also, that's important. But basically, that's an important point you say. The network server is decrypting the data. So basically, you see a clear text payload on the network server, and it's really important when you design a product to have end-to-end encryption, which is really rare currently in the hardware design. And so that's an issue which is important to proceed. But it's not a blockchain or Helium issue. It's more a device maker issue. That's important.
Paul, a quick question as well to you. If you have a we in France, you have to create like a telecom company or not needed?
Well, I don't know.
I
don't think so, but that's a good question. I didn't ask this question, so yeah, I don't know. That's good. If I want to, so I never heard anything about this.
Okay, you can cut Maria this part of the.
Okay, I will cut.
I know that when I'm mining with Helium, I need to have a company. Even as a Paul Pinot, I need to have a company to declare my revenue and
the taxes,
which is a bit of
Yeah, same in Spain. Yeah.
Well, I think
Portugal,
okay.
No tax on
crypto
there. No tax on crypto in Portugal.
I can move. So nice. Hey, Travis, and can you share more information about the activities and the program that Helium has for the community, so everyone who is connected can join in case they don't know about them?
Absolutely. Well, every Wednesday evenings, this is 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, so translate that how you will. We have Helium Hacks Happy Hour, where it's a very low-key get-together where you can chat with other developers and with members of the Helium staff and talk about whatever the heck you want to on Helium. Last week we were talking about electric cars and 3D printers. So, but that had to do with Helium enclosures and, building those up. Joey, one of our community members, had, sent out a lot of these enclosures he had designed. So we should very shortly be having these WizBlock Helium developer kits that we are going to get into as many hands as we can. So I'd love to give them away. I gave one away last time on Hacks, and it's a very cool kit. Jose and Maria worked with me on this. Jose, thank you for all the help here. It's an amazing kit that can do industrial. I mean, if you want to create an industrial device, you can do 0 to 5 volt. You can do 420 milliamps. You can power 12 volt sensors with it. But wait, there's more. And there
Yeah.
is more.
It sounds like it.
I've tried it. If you press the button, you get a coffee. Also,
It's funny you say that, because that's actually something I wrote up the other day, just so you can, if you're testing, you can just push a button on your desk and throw packets through. It's something we love to chat about. Come over to Discord, jump in Sensor Dev. There's a lot of great people over there who would love to, if you're having a problem working on firmware or devices or gateways, someone will be around to help you or yell at you. I mean, depending upon, who you find. But for the most part, people are pretty nice. So.
And now that you also mentioned that you give away in one of the Helium Developer Kit in the past session, I think that we can jump to the giveaway that we have for this one. So we have a few people connected. What we want to do for today's giveaway, a question, or maybe all of those who are connected can share their project ideas quickly on the chat, and we will choose the best project idea, and you will be receiving a Helium Developer Kit. So
that sounds like a deal. Yeah, sounds like a good deal to me. Yeah.
Perfect. So everyone who are connected, feel free to share your thought and your project's idea on about the Helium Developer Kit, and we will be selecting the most ideal
in the
one.
text chat here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten it. Yeah, we got to make that clear. So
yeah. There's already someone that wants to have a button to light your bulb, Travis, apparently, automatically. So it's going to be Christmas on your such things.
Okay,
excellent.
let's see.
By the way, these Wise blocks are really cool. As someone who's made a lot of different IoT stuff, I love the NRF52, and it's in there. So I really when Travis showed me what RAK had done with those, I was really excited to see that design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Nordic makes great chips, and the NRF52 one's just gold. I love every single LoRaWAN product I've used that has Bluetooth and LoRaWAN. So nice, so much nicer than the alternative where you plug in a serial cable and get in there.
Let me put you on the biggest screen, so you can share it. Yeah, better.
And RAK, I mean, did a great job with this, but Nordic just kills it with BLE. I mean,
yeah,
they have the best BLE utilities. They have the best stack. They make a great dev board on that, and it has the LoRa stack, combined with it. So, I mean, you could do protocol bridging with these between LoRa and LoRaWAN and BLE. It's there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do here, but.
I'm looking for mine. What I really like about the WiseBlock design is when you're doing hardware products, doing 10 to 100 is really painful, and I think the kind of the design of the WiseBlock makes it so you can actually ship it in some prototypes at that scale. But then that little green board that you were just showing at the center of it all works really well once you're ready to go to 1K, 5K. So. You can kind of keep the same infrastructure and the same design and start scaling with it, and they really help you at that early, difficult, expensive hardware development phase by having that really good core design. And
the power management on it, which is another big problem with a lot of prototypes. I mean, you can do solar and LiPo charging built in. People seem to forget about power until the very end when they're doing prototyping. I don't know why.
It works fine on my bench.
Yeah, right. It just seems like the last thing people think about, but it's so critical. And when you're right, when you're making 50 devices by hand, it's not. It's fun for the first couple,
For the first time, just the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. We received 3 submissions so far, so I will place it on the screen so we can choose the one. Yeah, you got it as well.
GPS.
Time to show the WiseBlock.
Just a little extra, you get GPS. Awesome. Such a cool little thing. I love it.
WiseBlock time.
All right, Paul.
I think this requires a picture.
Competition.
Nice. Okay, so this is the first one. I am now in a new apartment. I'm planning to do a home automation using Edge Impulse. This is the first one that we received. Also, we received another one, solar energy monitor, current monitoring. We have a waste management, like the recovery of the things only go to the specific point when it's ready. Well, so when it's full.
Like Ben.
Yeah, like having waste tracker. Another one, doorbell for my house, GPS tracker powered by the ODB port. Whoa, saving having a USB plugged in and it is hiding. And yeah, those are the 4 that we received. So what do you think?
You got to
Well, I
slip
gotta
down
kick
that
the-
ODB data too.
Well, but that's
complicated.
One for each, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see.
Basically, there is 2 RAK people offering the gift. We are 4 non-RAK. So I propose that we vote for offering one to all the different projects. What do you think of this?
I think these are all good ideas. I think these are all good use cases. I'd like to see some follow up. I mean, I'd like to see what you're coming up with. I want to see you over in the Discord and see what kind of firmware you're developing here. But yeah, I'm absolutely excited about these kits. And I don't know if I mentioned this. There's 2 boards in the kit, so
you can make 2. Yeah.
That's awesome.
2 devices. Maybe let's say that if these projects contact us on Discord, then each one will get the kit.
Yeah, definitely. I will leave. Yeah, sounds fair.
On the Helium Discord. Yeah, just find us there and contact us there.
I like it.
Okay, I placed the link of the RAKStar Discord. However, you can find the Discord Helium link as well in the video description. So feel free to reach out to us right there.
We got a
Helium channel over there as well. So.
Yeah,
amazing. Okay,
can I do a shameless plug?
Do it.
If you don't have coverage of Helium and you have a Pi and a LoRa concentrator from RAK, just go to Balena Hub, hub.balena.io, and you have like the European or American version of the Helium hotspot. You will not mine tokens, but you will create coverage and you will be able to test your WIS blocks on your hotspots. And then when you will receive your hotspot, then you can program that Pi with something else.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for add that to the chat, Marc. That is definitely if the people want to start thinking with the network, this is the good way to do it. And also you can start thinking around with the WISBlock and the different sensors it provides to you. So I think that's all for today's sessions. Like guys, I really learned a lot from the different points that you highlight during the discussion. Thanks for accepting the invitation and being with us today, for taking the time, and also for sharing with all of those who are connected. I don't know if someone else wants to add something else before leaving.
I see one question about the Helium network map. You just go to network.helium.com.
Yep.
And then you'll see it. And there's other Jose, that was the first time I saw that map. You have another thing. Is it something that Helium did or RAK did or?
No, it's a community app now. It's a new community
app. Fantastic. Love the community.
He was on Hacks the other night, actually, and he's going to do a whole presentation on Hacks. Yeah, it's cool as hell.
Okay, I think that's all. Thanks to everyone who connected to the session, all of those who chat with us during the session, those who share their projects ideas, and if someone is watching this video later, feel free to leave your questions on the comment section, and we'll be happy to answer them later. So we hope to see you next week, and enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, and evening, guys. Happy
Jose, thanks a lot.
Bye. Thanks a lot,
Bye.
guys.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Adios.